Điền Hoành almost jumped up from his chair. Although the four soldiers of the Duke's house behind Shenlong were pretending not to hear him, they were also stunned by his words. "Shenlong, are you crazy? What nonsense are you talking?" Điền Hoành roared. Not only did he feel this way, but the four soldiers of the Duke's house also thought Shenlong was delusional, asking for trouble. How could Điền Hoành possibly break DM13's two legs? He wasn't even planning on giving the 19,000 gold coins. If one of these conditions could be fulfilled, it would be unthinkable. Yet Shenlong wanted both? Wasn't this just pure delusion? I'm having a conversation with a madman. Shenlong gently swayed his body, then casually crossed his legs. Điền Hoành stared at Shenlong and said, "I clearly told you DM13 wanted to kill your whole family, but I sent him, yet I would never harm a single hair on him. You want me to break his legs and boost my authority? Dream on. And your 19,000 gold coins, you will not get a single one." Since the skin had already been torn off, what did he have to fear? Điền Hoành continued, "If you have the ability, have your so-called great man come here to negotiate with me. Let's see if he can break your two legs." Others didn't mind losing face, but the Duke's house still cared about its reputation. Could he really ask the Duke to negotiate the 19,000 gold debt? It was completely impossible. Breaking Shenlong's two legs was more realistic. For centuries, the Duke's house had strict rules, and not a single descendant dared to go to a gambling house. If the Duke of Xuanwu House negotiated a gambling debt on behalf of Shenlong, rumors would spread quickly, saying that the Duke's house was in financial trouble and had to send a son-in-law to gamble to make ends meet. So Điền Hoành planned to cheat. "You want to rally hundreds of gamblers and cause a stir?" Điền Hoành laughed and said, "Dream on. They win 9,000 gold coins. I'll pay them in full. But if you win, I won't give you a single coin. What are you going to do about it?" Điền Hoành immediately opened the window and shouted to the hundreds of gamblers below, "If I, Điền Hoành, started the gambling house and you win money, I'll pay you in full. Everyone, change your winnings now." As soon as he said this, hundreds of gamblers below went wild. Then dozens of attendants at the gambling house started working to exchange the winnings for everyone. In just half an hour, all the gamblers who won 9,000 gold coins had exchanged their winnings. "Điền Bongju is amazing! Điền Bongju is awesome! Điền Bongju, we love you!" Hearing these cheers, Điền Hoành sneered and said, "Shenlong, did you see that? How flattering these people are? I gave them their winnings, and you think they'll stay on your side and help you stir things up? Of course they wouldn't." Once these gamblers got their gold coins, some went home, some continued to gamble, but they completely lost interest in Shenlong. "The gamblers' money was never really theirs, it's just being kept from me," Điền Hoành said. "Do you believe it? In less than half a month, this 9,000 gold will be back in my hands and probably even more." Shenlong naturally believed it. In fact, it wouldn't even take half a month. In 7 or 8 days, he could take it back. Gambling money would never stay warm for long. The gambler's end was always inevitable. Winning was just the process, but losing was the outcome. The only difference was how much they lost. They won't help you stir things up, and the Duke won't negotiate your gambling debt. Shenlong, do you think your 19,000 gold is worth anything? I won't give you a single coin. What are you going to do about it? You want me to break DM13's two legs? Dream on. Clap, clap, clap. Shenlong clapped his hands and said, "Điền Bongju is not bad. Your shameless face is just as divine as mine. But, Shenlong, took a sip of tea. "Useless," Shenlong said. "You think you can hide by playing dirty? Dean Bungjin, you can struggle all you want, but I have the gambling dragon technique. You think I care about your 19,000 gold? Ha ha ha." Shenlong laughed like a villain and said, "Help! As long as your gambling house is open, your money is mine. I will win as much as I want. Not only will I win for myself, but I'll make sure all these gamblers win together. Unless you close your gambling house, if not, I'll definitely bankrupt you. Even if I don't need a single coin, I'll have countless gamblers win your assets. Are you really going to stop me from entering your gambling house? Are you going to stop me from coming in? Do you dare to touch a single hair on me?" Then Shenlong turned to the window and shouted to the hundreds of gamblers below, "Everyone, don't leave. I'll take you to keep gambling, keep winning, and will bankrupt Dean Huang. Dean Bungju, no more talking." Shenlong turned and left. Afterwards, Shenlong returned to the gambling house and continued his rampage. Like locusts, he led hundreds of gamblers and swept through the house. As expected, Shenlong wasn't lying. He really had the gambling dragon technique and was winning nonstop. As a result, all the attendants and dealers at the gambling house once again turned pale, doubting life. It was truly unstoppable. These hundreds of gamblers went completely wild. It was easier than picking up coins. As long as they followed Shenlong, they would definitely win. Finally, the attendants, dealers, and house managers once again couldn't take the pressure, and they collapsed, foaming at the mouth. The house manager kept running upstairs to report to Dean Huan. "Master, we've lost 3,000 gold. Master, we've lost 5,000 gold. Master, we've lost 7,000 gold. Shenlong keeps winning, and the rest are just those unruly gamblers winning." Dean Huang's face turned white and his body started trembling. Dean Meryi IV rushed in and shouted, "Master, I'll go kick Shenlong out." Without a word, Dean Meryi IV led his men downstairs to kick Shenlong out and was about to use force. Shenlong immediately rubbed his forehead and said, "What are you doing? You want to beat me? My body is not in good shape. If you touch me, I'll fall down. Who dares touch the Duke's son-in-law? I'll have his whole family killed." These words were clearly heard by Dean Huang upstairs. He truly couldn't imagine how Shenlong could say such shameless things. Shameless.
Sench's DN14 angrily pointed at Shenlang and shouted, "What if I do? Come on, people, throw Shenlang out." But the next second, the 4 soldiers from the Duke's house standing around Shenlang immediately drew their swords. Do you think you're going to fight with the Duke's house soldiers? Do you think you can harm the Duke's son-in-law? It's true. During the new administration, the Duke's house couldn't interfere in local affairs, nor could they arrest your men. But if you dare to make a move, it's open season. In less than a minute, the 4 soldiers from the Duke's house would take out anyone who dared to make a move. Even if you attacked them, 100 men against 1, these 4 soldiers would still beat you. Then, you'd be in even more trouble. Next, the Duke's house cavalry would arrive fiercely and flatten the entire Fukui Fyong. The Duke's house doesn't look for trouble, but we absolutely won't fear it. If no one touches me, I won't touch anyone. If someone touches me, I'll wipe out your whole family. This was Shenlang's talisman. Not only were the Duke's house soldiers protecting Shenlang, but countless gamblers also stood by him, making a circle around him. "What are you doing? Can't the gambling house take a loss? Want to harm me, the Shen family? You'd have to step over my body first." What a bunch of sycophants! Just now, Dian Huang gave them their winnings and they were chanting his name. Now they were chanting Shenlang's name after winning their share. What should he do now? Should he throw all these gamblers out? Dian Huang remained seated motionless, and he truly never hated anyone as much as he hated Shenlang at that moment. He wanted to tear Shenlang into 1,000 pieces. Regret? It was too late. If only he could turn back time, he would make sure to kill Shen Lang first before everything started. Unfortunately, there was no medicine for regret in this world. What should he do now? Dian Huang closed his eyes and said, "Temporarily shut down Fu Kui Fyong." "Yes," DN14 and the manager responded with pain. Soon, the manager's voice was heard from below. "Today, Fu Kui Fyong is temporarily closed. All the winners can come back tomorrow for their winnings." Then Shen Lang immediately said, "Dian Bangju has 4 gambling houses in Swanwu City. Shall we go one by one and win at each place?" "All right." Hundreds of gamblers excitedly agreed. Then Shen Lang, leading hundreds of gamblers, moved on to the next gambling house like a swarm of locusts. Dian Huang painfully closed his eyes. After a while, he hoarsely said, "Close all the gambling houses." "Yes," DN14 grit his teeth and replied. Little did anyone know the pain in Dian Huang's heart when he made that decision. These 5 gambling houses accounted for 60% of his daily earnings. They were truly his golden geese. Now, if they were closed, how much would he lose every day? Only heaven knows. But he would rather accept such a huge loss than compromise with Shen Lang. If he publicly broke DM13's legs, his reputation would be ruined and the morale of his gang would drop to 0. Who would fear him then?
Dian Hon was once again summoned to the house. He was expecting to see Zhang Zhen, but it was Tu Ya Zhuo instead. "Dian Bangju, I heard you closed down several of your gambling houses," Tu Ya Zhuo asked. "Yes," Dian Hon replied. "Just now you called me Dian Shun, and now you're calling me Dian Bangju. How real is this?" Of course, Tu Ya Zhuo didn't ask this out of personal interest, as he had no right to take money from the gambling house. He was speaking because Zhang Zhen had instructed him. After offending the Duke's house, Dian Hon had first allied with Zhang Zhen's gambling houses and then with the Tai Su Fu. Only then did he gain the courage to protect himself in front of the Duke. But before the gambling house had even started making money, you closed it down. Does this mean Zhang Zhen's family won't get any profit? You're closing the house, so you obviously don't intend to give me any money. What's going on? Do you have a problem with me, Zhang Zhen? Do you have a problem with the Tai Su Fu? Zhang Zhen couldn't show his face, as the money was being laundered through Tu Ya Zhuo and then presented as dowry to the Zhang family. "Why close the gambling houses?" Tu Ya Zhuo asked. "Because if I don't, we'll lose everything," Dian Hon said. Tu Ya Zhuo's face darkened. Is Shen Lang's gambling technique that powerful? "Yes, extremely powerful. I don't know why," Dian Hon said. Tu Ya Zhuo fell silent. Shen Lang, as the Duke's son-in-law, was untouchable. If not for that, Dian Hon would have sent someone to deal with him long ago. "This is all you're doing," Tu Ya Zhuo said. It was indeed Dian Hon's fault. He had let Shen Lang off, otherwise he would have buried him alive long ago. Dian Hon's eyes turned cold. "Otherwise, I could have done it secretly." Tu Ya Zhuo lightly said, "Is it worth it? Do you dare?" Yes. Was it worth it? Shen Lang was always surrounded by the Duke's soldiers, so only a true expert could kill him. Once Shen Lang was dead, the Duke's wrath would immediately descend on Dian Hon and Tu Ya Zhuo. Regardless of how Shen Lang died or who killed him, the Duke would have his revenge. If a son-in-law was assassinated, the Duke would unleash his power. The Duke would wipe out everything. "What does Shen Lang want?" Tu Ya Zhuo asked. Dian Hon said, "He wants me to break Yem 13's legs in front of everyone." Tu Ya Zhuo's face twitched. "Then agree to him. Break them. You have many other sons." As he said this, even Tu Ya Zhuo couldn't believe his own words. Dian Hon, his best disciple, Yem 13, was one of the best. If he broke his legs, his followers would be disappointed and disheartened. Điền Hoành was a man of principles. He'd rather lose money than lose his reputation. But then, a voice came from the other side of the room. Agree to him. It was Zhang Zhen's voice. He represented the Tai Su Fu and the Zhang family. He was Điền Hoành direct supporter. Don't delay. Delaying a day is losing money. It's better to agree to him now. Điền Hoành trembled all over, his teeth chattering tightly. Blood was coming out of his mouth. Zhang Zhen said, I agree. One day I will destroy Shenlang, and then I'll personally cut you a piece. Điền Hoành still did not speak. Zhang Zhen said, Shenlang is a small and insignificant person. Our real target is the Duke's house. Once we destroy the Duke's house, reclaim their land and military power, you will have done a great service. The position of Deputy City Lord will be yours. Điền Hoành stood up and said, All right, I obey. Điền Hoành went to meet Shenlang again.
I agree to you. I will break DM13's legs in front of everyone. You can go. No need to make a scene anymore. Điền Hoành said faintly. Shenlang shook his head. No, that was the old price. Now the price has changed. Your other son, DM14, also dared to shout at me earlier, saying he wanted to hit me. Now I want you to break his hands and legs too. Shenlang, you dare to say that? Why haven't you died yet? Upon hearing Shenlang's words, Điền Hoành felt a surge of heat rush to his head. I'll kill you! I'll kill you! He kept repeating these words in his mind, but he could only think it. Not agreeing? Shenlang sneered. Then my price goes up again. You won't just break DM13's legs, you'll break DM14's hands and legs as well. And you'll send all your black-clad thugs to my house, break their legs too. Điền Hoành closed his eyes. His eyes were bloodshot and his head was spinning. He really wanted to tear Shenlang into 1,000 pieces, but doing so would mean the end for him. All his efforts over the years would be wasted. He had no choice but to compromise. Every day, Shenlang would bring hundreds of gamblers to win money. Unless he kept the gambling houses closed, but once they were closed, the Tai Su Fu wouldn't let him off. Shenlang, you just wait. Just wait for me. He swore in his heart. After opening his eyes again, Điền Hoành gritted his teeth and said, All right, I will break DM13's legs in front of everyone, and break DM14's hands and legs. Shenlang said, Not only that, you'll completely expel them from the black-clad gang. No one can visit them or send them doctors. They must be left to die. Once I feel they're not suffering enough, I'll come back and sweep your gambling house again. I agree to everything. I agree to everything, Điền Hoành replied. At the entrance of Fuqui Fum, DM13 and DM14 knelt on the ground, their faces full of sorrow. The crowd around them had already surpassed 1,000 people and still kept growing. What a big event! DM13 and DM14 were Điền Hoành best disciples. They were both military officers in Shangwao City, and they were usually known for their martial prowess. No one dared to mess with them. But now, these two were kneeling here. Who did they offend? Looking at the vast crowd, Điền Hoành truly felt like his face was being torn off. But he had no choice. He had to keep up the act. If he didn't, Shenlang would never let him go. DM13, DM14, you are my disciples. I cherish you, Điền Hoành said with righteous words. But you offended Shenlang because of personal grins and almost caused a disaster. Looking at the scene, countless people who had gathered to watch felt strange looks in their eyes. It was because of Shenlang? Điền Hoành felt like his face was being completely stripped off. But he had to continue. This was the price of playing the role of a king and a soldier. There was no room for reasoning. Shenlang is not only the Duke's son-in-law, but also my close friend. How could you two disrespect him? Điền Hoành shouted angrily. If I don't punish you severely, how can I maintain my reputation? Come, bring me the stick. Immediately, another disciple brought a large, rough stick. Điền Hoành took a deep breath and walked over to DM13. DM13, don't blame your father. DM13 didn't reply, his expression calm. This made Điền Hoành furious. Was he trying to make things difficult for him? Was he unwilling to obey him? Điền Hoành raised the stick and suddenly struck DM13's legs. Crack! DM13's legs were broken. From start to finish, he only let out a soft grunt, not a single scream of pain. Like a wounded beast, he growled quietly, but didn't scream. DM14, on the other hand, didn't have the same resolution. His whole body trembled. He wasn't willing. He had defeated Shen Lang for the sake of his master, for the benefit of the black-clad gang, but now his master wanted to break his hands and legs? Was there any justice in the world? It was clear that his master had offended Shen Lang. He had lost to Shen Lang. Why did he have to sacrifice himself and DM13? Master, do you really love your disciples like this? You always talk about righteousness, but where is it now? Immediately, DM14 shouted, I don't accept this! I don't accept this! Điền Hoành immediately became enraged. DM14's shout broke his mask, and without thinking, he grabbed the stick and struck DM14's legs. Ah! Ah! A scream echoed as DM14's legs were crushed. Then, Điền Hoành suddenly struck again. DM14's hands were completely crushed, broken beyond recognition.
DM14 let out an incredibly sorrowful scream that sent chills down everyone's spine. Then, he immediately fainted. Instantly, the crowd around them trembled. The scene was so painful to watch that it felt like their own hands and legs were being broken. Especially the black-cloaked gang's warriors and Điền Hoành other disciples. They all felt a deep coldness. What a heartless act. What a cold heart. DM13 and DM14 had been so loyal and devoted to their adoptive father, yet the moment trouble struck, they were the first to be sacrificed and take the blame. Who would have thought? The normally dignified leader of the black-cloaked gang, Điền Hoành, was so cold-hearted. Today, he had unhesitatingly sacrificed DM13 and DM14. What about tomorrow? Would it be our turn next? Of course it will. DM13 and DM14 were Điền Hoành most valued disciples, but compared to them, their worth was likely less than that of DM14 and 15. At a critical moment, the boss would definitely not hesitate to sacrifice anyone. At that moment, Điền Hoành status among his disciples sharply declined. If these people still had any respect for him, now they had completely lost it. Today's events would forever tarnish Điền Hoành reputation, and his power in the martial world would sharply decline. What was once feared would now be forgotten. The very person who had been so revered and respected was now being reduced to a mere tool for Shen Lang's amusement. This incident would become a lifetime of shame for Điền Hoành. Điền Hoành gritted his teeth and said, Shen Lang, are you satisfied now? Shen Lang replied, Not quite. Điền Bangja, I'm sure you remember clearly what you said to me yesterday. I always keep my word. Indeed, it wasn't just memorable, it was etched deeply in his bones and soul. In the future, how much would he have to pay to make up for the losses from today? He had never expected that after a lifetime of dominance, Điền Hoành would fall so badly to this little white-faced Shen Lang.
Who could have imagined that Shenlong could really do this? However, Điền Hoành still had a chance. As long as he clung to the thigh of the Tai Shu Fu, once they helped him overthrow the Xuanwu Duke's house, he could become the deputy city lord. Everything would be worth it. As long as there is power, all that talk of moral ethics could be tossed aside. But today's humiliation must be swallowed. Let it pass, let it pass. Shenlong said, "Dien Bangja, the day is getting late. Let's finish this little matter we have between us." Điền Hoành face changed dramatically. "What? It's not over yet? I've already broken my two sons' legs in front of everyone, and it's still not over?" Shenlong said, "You shouldn't push me." Điền Hoành screamed, "But weren't you the one who lost 19,000 gold coins in my gambling house yesterday? You can't leave it at that. Just give me the money now. I need to go home for dinner with my wife soon." Immediately, Điền Hoành bloodshot eyes were about to explode in anger. This money he could never pay. He didn't have it, and he couldn't get it.
His gambling house had already lost over 10,000 gold coins today, and the treasury of Fuqui Fuang was almost empty. Where would he find so much money? There was no way he could give it, unless the Duke himself came to collect the debt. Shenlong said, "Of course, I'm still a man of principle. Since you can't get so much money, how about you give me 2,000 gold coins now? Write a loan receipt for the remaining 17,000 gold coins. How about that?" Shenlong had already calculated that this was the most Điền Hoành could give right now. Điền Hoành truly didn't know how someone could be so shameless and forceful to this extent. Heaven, how can such a despicable person like this be allowed to live? Shenlong said, "Điền Bangju, give me the 2,000 gold coins and write the loan receipt. After today, this matter will be over. Otherwise, I'm really afraid one day I won't be able to control my own hands and feet, and I'll be forced to enter your gambling house again. At that time, it'll be embarrassing for you to face everyone." Then Shenlong looked up at the sky and said, "It really is getting late. My wife must be getting impatient. If the food gets cold, she won't eat." Even though it was only 2,000 gold coins, Điền Hoành didn't want to give it to him. This was his last straw. Even if he had to face the public, he still didn't want to do it. At that moment, he suddenly heard a voice from his ear. "Give it to him." It was Zhang Zhen's voice from the second floor of Fuqui Fuang. He had been watching the scene from above, indifferent and cold. Zhang Zhen said, "The Xuanwu Duke's family is very strict. The Duke's tradition is old-fashioned. Winning money from gambling is the lowest of the low. Shenlong takes it back to the Duke's house, and it will only make the Duke disappointed in him. He might even have him beaten to death." What Zhang Zhen said was true. If Shenlong lost money in the gambling house, it would be a huge blow to the Duke's reputation. But if he won money and took it back, it would make the Duke's reputation even worse. It was an embarrassment to the Duke's family. How could a noble family like the Duke's rely on such despicable methods to make money? What had happened to the noble Jin family? Điền Hoành immediately realized Zhang Zhen was right, so he coldly said, "Fine, I'll give it. Someone get 2,000 gold coins from the treasury and give it to Shenlong immediately." A while later, Điền Hoen's two disciples brought a chest to him filled with 2,000 gold coins. "Where is the loan receipt?" Shenlong asked. "I'll write it," Điền Hoeng replied. But everyone knew this loan receipt was never going to be repaid. After writing the loan receipt, Điền Hoeng handed it to Shenlong and said, "Shenlong, are you satisfied now?" Shenlong took the loan receipt and carefully examined it. Then he opened the chest and took a handful of gold coins, enjoying the heavy and beautiful feeling of it. The golden light dazzled everyone around him. In his heart, Điền Hoeng sneered, take it. I'm waiting for the Xuanwu Duke to break your legs." Taking this money, Shenlong became even more triumphant. Once he returned to the Duke's house, things would get even worse for Điền Hoành. The harm to the Duke's reputation was irreplaceable. Điền Hoành could already imagine how angry and disappointed the Duke would be when he saw this pile of gold coins. But Shin Lang smiled slightly, then suddenly turned his expression to one of righteousness. His voice was loud and firm as he said, 2,000 gold coins? I don't care about this kind of money. Điền Hoành, how many families have lost everything in your gambling houses over the years? How many have been destroyed? Can you bear that? I, Shin Lang, treat money as worthless. I didn't come to your gambling house to win money. I came to teach you how immoral your wealth is. I came to bring justice to the countless citizens of Xuanwu City. My father-in-law has always told me to love the people as my own. Today, I'm teaching Fu Kui Fuang a lesson not for myself, but for the people of Xuanwu City. This money, not a single gold coin will I take. I will give it all to the people. Shin Lang suddenly grabbed the gold coins and scattered them towards the crowd of onlookers. Instantly, the crowd went wild. 2,000 gold coins, a huge sum. Shin Lang just give it all to the people of Xuanwu City. The hundreds of people around went completely crazy. 10 minutes later, all 2,000 gold coins were gone. This is how you spent money like water. It was so exhilarating. Long live Shin Lang! Long live the Duke's house! The crowd chanted in unison. Meanwhile, Điền Hoành was watching the scene in utter helplessness. He really wanted to explode. Not only had he been forced to break his two sons' legs, but now Shin Lang had used his money to buy the hearts of the people. Not only had his dignity been humiliated, but now his intelligence was being insulted. Điền Hoành had already been holding in his anger, but now he couldn't take it anymore. His chest was filled with violent pain. He couldn't hold it in anymore, and a mouthful of blood spurted out. Shin Lang, I, Điền Hoành, will never rest until I deal with you. Never rest till then. With that, Điền Hoành staggered, almost falling backwards. And meanwhile, Zhang Zhen and Liu Wuwan, watching from the second floor, were utterly stunned. My God, how could it have ended up like this? This little white-faced trickster is so cunning.
Zhang Chen and Lu Wunyam, the city lord, exchanged glances. Such a big incident had occurred, and naturally the city lord wanted to be involved. Because this gambling house was also making money from him. But with his status, it was absolutely not appropriate for him to make an open appearance. Zhang Chen looked at Shenlong's handsome face, his mind going back to the scene where Shenlong had been driven out. It seemed like just a few days ago, but it felt so distant. At that time, Shenlong had clearly been a naive and silly child. How had he transformed into such a sly and cunning figure now? City Lord Zhang, do you think that with the current chaos, Shenlong might be particularly prone to mood swings? Zhang Chen suddenly asked. Lu Wunyam, the city lord, nodded in agreement. That's right. He and the Duke's family were naturally enemies, so of course he was aligned with Shenlong. Zhang Chen continued. Right now, with thousands of people surrounding Shenlong to pick up money, if something happens, a trampling incident, it should have nothing to do with us, right? Lu Wunyam, the city lord, replied. Of course not. Zhang Chen added, but if by accident Shenlong is trampled and becomes a eunuch, it would just be a normal event. Lu Wunyam, the city lord, said, it would be normal. With the current chaos, if something tragic were to happen to Shenlong, it could be blamed on Shenlong himself for being too high profile. The Duke would never go after the thousands of people in the crowd, would he? Isn't he supposed to love the people like his own children? And also, the enemies of Điền Hoang's side, he was already in such a miserable state, coughing up blood and fainting. Lu Wunyam suddenly spoke. If it's a trampling incident, there will definitely be many deaths. Dozens or even hundreds of people is normal. By then, both Shenlong and the Duke's family can't escape the responsibility. As soon as these words were said, Zhang Chen was momentarily stunned.
So, they were trying to use the deaths of dozens of people as a way to slander the Duke's family? Zheng Chen looked at Lu Wunyam with astonishment. He thought he was just taking advantage of the situation to make Shenlong pay, but the city lords seemed to want to use this opportunity to bring down the Shen Wu Duke's family. Damn, he truly was a politician, even more ruthless than us martial generals. Aren't you afraid of losing your reputation? After a brief moment, the two men nodded. They decided to take this opportunity to create a big event that would pull the Duke's family into a major disaster. Trampling on Shenlong was just a small part of it. Long live the Duke! Long live the Shen family! More than 1,000 people outside were still cheering. A dozen or so warriors, dressed in ordinary people's clothes, infiltrated the crowd from all directions. They pushed toward Shenlong through the crowd. It all began with a struggle over gold coins, creating chaos. Then they first shoved the four warriors by Shenlong's side, knocking him to the ground and one foot crushing his eggs. This eventually led to a huge stampede, creating a major disaster, with at least dozens of people dying, and all the blame falling on the Duke's family. The plan was truly malicious. However, Shenlong was the first to sense the danger. The chaotic crowd was the easiest to cause a stampede, which could lead to a big disaster. Also, among the crowd, there were more than a dozen people following him. Because he had a good memory, he could clearly remember many of their faces. He glanced at Fu Kuifeng. Today's incident had escalated so much, and yet there was no sign of Dian Huang's backup. This was strange, wasn't it? These dozen or so people clearly weren't Dian Huang's people. They were here to create an even bigger commotion and disaster.
Quiet, everyone. Don't move. Shenlang shouted loudly. At that moment, the gold coins had already been distributed, and his voice echoed at the highest point. When the crowd of over 1,000 people heard Shenlang, they all went quiet and stood in place, looking at Shenlang. So, the fake civilians, those dozen or so warriors, seemed especially out of place as they pushed forward. You want to stop me now? Too slow. Dian Huang had already fainted, and now only Shenlang remained as the primary figure. Once a major stampede occurred and deaths followed, the responsibility would fall solely on Shenlang and the Duke's family. Shenlang pulled out the loan receipt from Dian Huang, which listed a debt of about 17,000 gold coins. Though this debt would never be paid, the sum of 17,000 gold coins was still a shocking amount. This is the 17,000 gold coins Dian Huang owes me, Shenlang said loudly. I will not take a single coin. Where did Dian Huang's money come from? Where did Pu Kui Fuang's money come from? All of it belongs to the people of Xuanwu City, your hard-earned money. Therefore, this 17,000 gold coins belongs to all of you. Shenlang raised the loan receipt high and said, this money isn't just owed by Dian Huang, but by all the citizens of Xuanwu City. I will take this loan receipt to the City Lord's mansion and ask City Lord Lu to recover this debt for the citizens of Xuanwu City. I won't take a single coin, nor will it pass through my hands. It will all be used to help the poor families of Xuanwu City. You must trust that City Lord Lu will act on behalf of the people, Shenlang said loudly. As soon as this was said, inside Pu Kui Fuang, City Lord Lu's face turned pale. Damn it! This fire is burning right on my head? The dozen or so fake civilians continued to push forward toward Shenlang. They intended to trample him first and then create a large-scale stampede. But Shenlang suddenly dashed forward. It was like a lightning strike. He quickly rushed to Pu Kui Fuang, then suddenly opened the door. Liu Yunam, the city lord of Xuanwu City, stood inside, his face full of astonishment and embarrassment. Then he dashed into Pukui Fuang and suddenly opened the door. Li Yunam, the city lord of Xuanwu City, stood inside, his face full of astonishment. "Damn it, Shenlang, you cunning little trickster, you said you were going to the city lord's mansion to find me, and now you suddenly burst in here?" At this moment, the dozen or so people outside immediately stopped. If Shenlang were alone here, the stampede disaster would surely be his and the Duke's family's responsibility. But now, with the city lord present, then it would be his responsibility and Shenlang would only share in the blame. So, this devious plan fell apart. Such a big incident was bound to attract the attention of the city lord, especially since this gambling house was also benefiting him. City Lord Liu didn't expect Shenlang to directly rush in, exposing him in front of the crowd. Then, Shenlang respectfully handed the loan receipt to City Lord Liu, saying sincerely, "City Lord Liu, this loan receipt represents the hopes of the countless poor citizens of Xuanwu City. You love the people like your own children, so I place this responsibility in your hands." At that moment, all the citizens of Xuanwu City turned their eyes to City Lord Liu. This 17,000 gold coins belongs to the sweat and tears of the people of Xuanwu City. It concerns the hopes of countless poor families. I, Shenlang, do not care about this money, but City Lord Liu is a city lord. If you take charge and demand this debt for the poor, then Dian Huang will have no choice but to pay.
As soon as these words were spoken, Điền Hoành, who had just regained some clarity, felt like he was about to faint again. This loan receipt for 17,000 gold coins was just something written casually. There was no money to pay it, unless the Duke himself came to collect it. But even if the sky fell, the Duke would never come to settle this gambling debt. So, this loan receipt was essentially useless. But now, he actually had to pay. Zongchen and Liu Wunam's eyes widened in disbelief. This gambling house, while owned by Điền Hoành, was actually benefiting them as well. The losses would be theirs. City Lord Liu's eyes trembled. Then he forced a smile and said, "Don't worry, I will not disappoint you. I will donate the 17,000 gold coins to the poor of Xuanwu City, and I officially entrust this matter to the city lord. Are you sure you will demand this debt on behalf of the countless poor citizens of Xuanwu City?" What could City Lord Liu do now? Could he ignore it? This was all happening right in front of the people. Shenlang had turned this into a matter of life and death for the poor citizens of Xuanwu City. If he didn't accept it, rumors would spread tomorrow that he was helping the gambling house. Otherwise, why would he be hiding inside Fu Kui Fuang? At this moment, the reputation of the city lord was on the line. With a smile on his face, City Lord Liu's heart felt like 1,000 snakes were crawling inside. "Shenlang, you are truly a venomous snake." But now there were so many people watching. The city lord could not lash out, and he had to show a friendly smile. "Of course, Shenlang, don't worry," City Lord Liu, the city lord, said with a smile. "Thank you, City Lord." Shenlang bowed deeply. "It's getting late. I must take my leave. Farewell, City Lord." Under the worshipful gazes of the crowd and the hate-filled eyes of the dozen or so warriors, Shenlang climbed into his magnificent carriage and left triumphantly. Today's battle truly filled him with immense joy. From now on, the entire Xuanwu City would be talking about his legend. Inside Xuanwu Duke's house, the Duke walked anxiously back and forth in the grand hall, occasionally looking around outside. "Jin Cheng, has Shenlang not returned yet?"
Jin Chung replied. "Not yet, my lord." The Duke asked again, "Have you sent people to inquire about his whereabouts?" Jin Chung replied, "No, my lord." The Duke said, "Have you sent anyone to secretly protect Shenlong in case of any potential danger?" Jin Chung replied, "About 10. That should be enough." The Duke looked up at the sky, his anxiety deepening. He regretted, though he hadn't spoken the words out loud. He truly shouldn't have let Shenlong jeeve. The young man didn't know his own limits, and now he had gone straight for Điền Hoành, risking everything. He had already lost a lot, but he feared the worst. Điền Hoành had powerful backings, including Zongchen and City Lord Lu. He feared Shenlong wouldn't just fail miserably. The worst-case scenario was that this would become a major disaster. If Shenlong didn't return, he feared it wouldn't just be a loss, but an enormous disaster.